My father at that time had been a teacher, a young teacher. But gradually, in our village, that's in Kherson region, in the south of Ukraine, the attendance at school has decreased to the extent that there were just few children attending the school. Originally there were about 400, 500 students, but during 32, 33, there were about 5 or 10 students still attending the school. And so my father went to the village council and asked them to help for the students, or children, pupils actually, with food. And he stated that children are dying and there are not many that are attending the school. However, village council threw him out, stating that there is no hunger, there is no famine in Ukraine, and warned him that as a teacher, he should never mention even the word hunger again. And they threw him out. Well, he came home and he was telling my mother what happened. And so she said, "You didn't approach them the right way. You should have told them that you are educating future pioneers, future members of the Komsomol and Communist Party, etc., and they would need some help in food, because Lenin himself said that the Soviet education is the best in the world, etc., etc." Well, in a matter of 2 days, my father went back to this village council and told them that Lenin himself approved good food, good education for the future of the country when we are educating young pioneers, young Komsomols, future member of the Communist Party, etc. And this time they listened, and it made sense to them. So, in a matter of 2 days, the village council brought in field kitchen into the schoolyard. They brought in some of the produce that was stored in so-called Soviet storages, and they started to cook so-called горячие сніданки, or hot breakfast, but only for those who came to school. And of course, the news that there is soup, каньор, or горячие сніданки at school, the children started to come back. Previously, they simply couldn't, some couldn't come, some were too ill, some were too sick, Some didn't come because of many other reasons. And so they started to return. And the news throughout the whole village spread very quickly. There were children who were coming to school just because they could get a bowl of hot soup. But only those who were coming to school were giving soup. You could not take anything home. You could not share with anyone. But gradually, my father started to encourage the students to come back to school as anywhere they could, because that was helping children to stay alive. Well, those who came, many of them were saved during the winter of 1932 and 33. The worst time had been the spring of 1933. Because by then, all food was consumed. The food which had been here and there lost or found had been consumed. Those who had food, it was against the law to share with so-called kurkuli. And kurkuli were all those who did not join kolhoz, which is коллективное cultivation of land. Our family, mainly because of those hot breakfasts, survived. Millions did not. Some were trying to escape into cities to find maybe a job, maybe food. But they then came out also one new law, which they call propiska, that made all people remain in their native villages. And if you were caught in the city without propiska, simply means registration of your habitat, then you were sent back by the police. You were not able to oppose or do anything about it, but had to go back to the village for certain death because of the famine. Now, there were many justifications why it happened the way it happened. There were people revolts, and so the government used famine, artificial famine, to put down revolts. The law just stated that all agricultural cultivation of land had to be during kolkhozs. Some didn't join them, and so the government again implemented cultivation of land in kolkhoz by simply forcing people to join. But of course, the government always justified their ways of making people do what any dictator makes them want to do. The worst part of it was that there was food in so-called burti, or socialistic storages, where there were produce, there was cabbages and potatoes and carrots, etc. But any time anyone who approached those storages were beaten up or simply did not allow them to come near the places. And of course there were guards, armed guards, that would not allow for anyone, even the mothers with hungry children, to approach those storages. To conclude, I would say people were trying to help each other as much as they could. But it was against the law to help those who didn't have any food, which was totally immoral, inhumane way of making people join kolkhozs. In general terms, well, some claim there were 5 million that had died during this local Holodomor. Some say 7, some say 10. I was too young to comprehend the numbers. I was too young even to comprehend why would a government take food from people, their own people, so that they would die? And that's exactly what the government was doing. They have used famine as a method to make people obey the dictator. Why am I saying that? Well, we hope that new generations that will come will be able to understand and to prevent similar occurrences no matter where in the world. Thank you for listening.